Most people think secret societies were about power, control, or elitism. But what if the most misunderstood brotherhood in history was never meant to rule the world, only to protect something the world wasn't ready to receive? Today I want to take you into the hidden story of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, not as myth, not as fantasy, but as an initiatory teaching that has quietly shaped mysticism, Freemasonry, Hermeticism, and even modern spirituality itself. This isn't surface-level history. This is about why knowledge goes underground, why truth often wears symbols, and why some teachings can only be recognized when the soul is ready. The Rosicrucian story begins with a mysterious figure known as Christian Rosenkreutz, not as a personality to be worshipped, but as a symbolic carrier of a lineage. His journey, described in early Rosicrucian texts, is not just physical travel through the Middle East and North Africa. It is the inner journey of initiation itself. According to the tradition, Rosenkreutz traveled to places where ancient wisdom was still alive, where sacred science, alchemy, astrology, and spiritual medicine were preserved beyond the reach of collapsing empires. What he learned wasn't superstition. It was a unified science of spirit and nature, the same wisdom echoed in Hermetic teachings, Egyptian mystery schools, and later, Kabbalah. But here's the part: most people miss. The Rosicrucians were never interested in fame, followers, or domination. In fact, anonymity was central to their vow. They believed that truth, when exposed too early, becomes corrupted, and history proved them right. When Rosenkreutz returned to Europe carrying this knowledge, the world wasn't ready. Scholars ridiculed him, institutions resisted him, and so the wisdom went underground, not to hide from humanity, but to protect humanity from misusing it. This is where the symbol of the rose and the cross becomes essential. The cross represents the human condition, matter, limitation, incarnation, and the weight of earthly life. The rose represents the soul, unfolding consciousness, divine intelligence, and spiritual awakening. Together they encode a single truth: the soul blooms through incarnation, not escape from it. Rosicrucianism was never about abandoning the world. It was about transmuting the human experience itself. This is why the Rosicrucians were described not as miracle workers or rulers, but as healers, philosophers, alchemists, and quiet servants of humanity. They worked anonymously. They took no credit. They left no monuments bearing their names, and yet their influence quietly shaped the philosophical foundations of modern Freemasonry, mystical Christianity, alchemical symbolism, and even the idea that science and spirituality do not oppose one another, they complete one another. One of the most misunderstood moments in the Rosicrucian story is the discovery of the symbolic tomb of Rosenkreutz, a chamber revealed not as a literal burial, but as a temple of preserved wisdom. Inside, according to the allegory, were teachings sealed not by force, but by time. This was not about death. It was about preservation. The message was clear. True wisdom cannot be destroyed, only withdrawn until consciousness catches up. From this emerge what are known as the four postulates of Rosicrucian understanding. The first acknowledges that Rosicrucianism existed as a real initiatory current, not necessarily as a public organization, but as a continuity of knowledge passed from adept to adept. The second admits that the outer history is fragmented, because secrecy was the point. You don't find initiatory orders preserved cleanly in archives. You find them in symbols, encoded texts, allegory, and living transmission. The third confronts the skeptic, suggesting that even if parts of the story were symbolic, the impact of Rosicrucian thought is undeniable. You don't influence centuries of mysticism, philosophy, and esoteric science by accident. And the fourth goes even further, proposing that the Rosicrucians were not bound by conventional limitations of time, place, or identity, not because they were supernatural beings, but because consciousness itself is not limited the way we are taught to believe. This is where many people feel uncomfortable, because Rosicrucian teaching doesn't ask you to believe anything. It asks you to remember. It suggests that wisdom doesn't belong to institutions. It belongs to those who cultivate inner readiness. Knowledge reveals itself when the soul has matured enough to carry it without distortion. This is why the Rosicrucians refused recruitment. diffused publicity, and refused hierarchy as the world understands it. They believe the real initiation happens within. If this teaching resonates with you, it may be because you're not encountering it for the first time. You're encountering it at the right time. Not everyone who reads about the Rose Cross sees it, but those who do feel something awaken, a quiet recognition, a memory beyond memory, and that is not coincidence. It is initiation. If something in you stirred while listening to this, it's because you already carry the questions that lead beyond surface spirituality. I work with people who feel called to decode the symbols, integrate the wisdom, and embody the teachings rather than just study them. If you're ready to explore this path consciously, through hermetic insight, soul remembrance, and grounded integration, you're invited to work with me. Follow for deeper teachings like this. Comment a rose.